Hey, it's Shay Keister, and I'm your host for the Casual Cattle Conversations podcast, where we connect you to ranchers and beef industry enthusiasts who can help you build a more profitable operation and improve your lifestyle. Are you looking for a community of ranchers who support and challenge you to be more profitable and proactive? Then sign up for our monthly Rancher Mind events. Rancher Minds are mastermind events for ranchers to come together once a month and find solutions for their own and the industry's challenges. Stay connected by following Cattle Convos on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and never miss an episode or event update by signing up for our newsletter on casualcattleconversations.com/newsletter. If you get value out of this episode or any episode, drop a comment or tip me by using the link in the show notes. With that, let's see who our guest is today and connect you to a new resource to improve your own operation and lifestyle. Alrighty, thank you for hopping back onto the show today. I'm glad to have you on here. I'm glad you're listening, and I am excited about this episode. Today, we are visiting with Markie Hageman, and she is a first-generation rancher and advocate for our industry. She does an outstanding job of this, and I actually have the pleasure of serving as a trailblazer with her this year. So I'm excited about that and being a part of that program and getting to know Markie even better. So with that, we're going to be talking about the 7 deadly sins of first-generation ranchers. So it should be, I shouldn't say it should be. I know it's going to be an amazing episode because Markie just did an outstanding job and has so much input. So with that, let's get on with the episode.
Well, Markie, thank you for hopping on the show today. I know it's been so fun. We're here at NCBA right now, CattleCon, and have gotten the opportunity to speak on a panel together. We've been Instagramming back and forth for a few years. I know I've been following you, so it's just been a lot of fun, and I'm glad we finally got the chance to meet a little more.
Yeah, I'm excited that we actually got to meet in person, and we'll be able to be on Trailblazers together, so it's going to be fun. Like, we're going to be able to get to know each other better, so.
Glad they finally announced who the Trailblazers were, because it was absolutely killing me for a few weeks.
Yes.
But, yeah, well, kind of leading into that, I know obviously, like we talked about, we've discussed your background, but would you share with my listeners, what is your background in ranching? What does that look like for you?
So I didn't come from ranching. I have people in my family who do raise cattle. My stepdad's one of them, my uncle's another one, but that is not anything that I had any involvement in growing up. I got involved in 2017 when I moved to be with my mom and my stepdad in Alabama, and they have cattle, and it's just a small, commercial operation, cow-calf. And I just started spending a lot of time with the cows because why not? I lived right next to them, and it was just really interesting to me because I didn't really know much about them. Mm-hmm. And I started advocating just because I was around the cows and I knew my stepdad and how he handled his herd. And then I decided I want to do this. I really love this. And so in 2020, I bought my first heifers, and then last Christmas we had our first calves. So yeah, it's been exciting. It's been a crazy ride, but
yeah, so awesome. It's really neat to see how your interest was sparked and how you've grown from there. And a little bit about your advocacy. So what really made you feel called to start that advocacy page?
Well, I was always I had MySpace back in the day. I've always been pro social media, just because I don't know why, it's just something my personality is attracted to. And when I lived in Alabama and I started kind of realizing what ranchers and just ag in general was facing, I thought, I'm really good with social media. Well, I was good at that time. I've grown a lot, but then I was like, I can be that voice. I have the ability to tell a story. I have the ability to want to put myself out there. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people in the industry are scared to, and I totally get that. Me putting myself out on my Girls Eat Beef 2 page is terrifying. There are times when I'm like, why did I post that? But I think overall it's been really good because I've been able to help other people tell their stories, and I've been able to like show different perspectives. So I just think my personality type and just my strengths within social media drew me to that, and it's kind of given me a purpose rather than just like posting, stupid updates about like everything else in my life that's really mundane.
Absolutely. Well, I know I enjoy following it, and you've built up an outstanding followership, and you're Advocate of the Year, so that is just amazing. But we're going to focus this conversation a little bit more about your experience as a first-generation rancher and really talk about, the 7 deadly sins of what you shouldn't do when you're that first-generation rancher and what that looks like. And, what we talked about before, one of the points that you brought up was when you listen to other people's advice instead of what's doing best for your operation.
Yeah, so I've been experiencing this a lot lately. That's really that's why I put it as the first one, because that's like really on my heart right now. I post a lot about my calves and my experiences with the things I'm doing for the first time. Like the first time I had to vaccinate a calf, like it was just terrifying, and different things that I'm having to learn as I go. A lot of people have unsolicited advice, and I try to be so grateful about it, because people who have experience and have knowledge, want to help me. But at the same time, I do feel like I have to figure it out on my own. I have to learn what works best for me. A good example of that is the other day we had a heifer calf who I needed to give her a shot of antibiotics, and she was not easy to handle. And we have a shoot, but my fiance isn't as comfortable, handling the animals, and I'm definitely not strong enough to handle them on my own. So, I just showed a video of like me trying to do that and me trying to like work through that process. And I just got flooded with people messaging me like, this is why you need to do this. This is why you should do this. And instead of them understanding the actual situation, they saw one instant, one thing, and they didn't know, this is how I problem solved. This is what I did instead. I tried this, it didn't work. Here's what I ended up doing. And this is why I can't do what you're telling me to do. So I think with first generation ranchers, beginners in anything, you have to realize like, yeah, there are people who have done it. They know what they're doing. They are great at what they're doing. But when you're starting out and you're limited and you're still trying to figure it out, you can take their advice, a grain of salt, and then say, but this is what I'm going to do instead. If you're constantly like listening to what other people are telling you to do, then you're never going to figure it out on your own. You're going to always have to like rely on other people, and you're going to have a hard time problem solving. Personally, that's me. So I think that you take the mentors that you have, you take your vet, you take the professionals, and you listen to them. But when it's like everyone else, it's like, I always tell people, I compare it to like mother-in-laws, like trying to tell you how to raise your kids. Like, whatever, they know, they have good advice. That doesn't mean you have to listen to it. Listen to the people that you trust and and they will have the discussion with you if you're like, I don't think that's going to work for me, and they're going to help you problem solve.
I think that's really important that you brought up how important it is to problem solve, and that's something that as you work into ranching or any business or whatever you're doing, you need to work on becoming more independent in your thinking and thought process, because there's so many ways of doing something. So, and you look at ranching and how it's spread throughout the country, let alone the world, how different regions require different practices.
Yeah.
And it's honestly a beautiful thing to be able to achieve the common goal in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But it's important that we understand what's going to be best for ourselves too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so moving into number 2, you brought up not having a clear lease contract if you aren't the owner of the land where your cattle are.
So that also hits close to home. The 2 pastures that I'm leasing right now, well, they're actually family owned, and I'm so grateful for them. I wouldn't be able to be where I am without that. More importantly, with family, I do think that there needs to be those hard lines, like this is what is expected. I've had personal experiences with family who they're trying to be helpful, but it's kind of caused a lot of conflict with me because I want to be able to know what know what's happening. And I think with leases, sometimes that's a thing that people don't understand, right? That's a lot of, maybe there's the legal jargon of it, and maybe it's just the fact that you don't know where to start. And with lease contracts, I think that's important that you have just as much say in it as the landowner does, because in the end it's a mutual relationship, right? It's beneficial to both parties, and they want to have good people leasing their land just as much as you want to have that land to lease. So you have to be able to like say, this is what I expect from you. One of the things that my personal experience is, there were some fences on the lease that I had that I used those fences. I actually needed those fences, and one day I went out and the fences were gone. And I was like, well, I kind of wish there was a conversation about it. And that's what I think is important, is even just little things like that you don't think of, like put those in the lease. Make sure you know, like, this is what I want. I want conversations, I want discussions. If anything needs to change, if anything isn't working, just let me know. And so I think that's really important going forward, is have a lease contract and make sure that you have just as much say in it as the landowner does.
Well, and that's the important part of contracts. Like, that's the important part of any business agreement. And it's supposed to be mutually beneficial on both sides. One, each party gets something, get something and give something. And so that's important. But I really think your comment about making sure that you have these contracts with the family. And yes, sometimes the legalities can scare you away, but what if not having that contract ruins your relationship with that family member? And that's something that needs to be aware of. Or if it brings up completely other legal issues that would be way more difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's something, even on the small business side, it's like, there's times I don't want to have to send out contracts to guests or sponsors, but I have to take care of myself, and that's no different in any business. So
yep, absolutely. I mean, I just think it's a good way to keep the relationship without causing any unnecessary drama.
And it really also sets that nice line of, okay, now we're doing business, now we're doing family time.
Yep.
Which is valuable even when you look at the transition planning side of things.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so number 3, trying to do too much too fast. Talk about that one a little bit.
So ever since I started, like with my first heifers, my motto's kind of been like, start slow, start small, and start simple. When you're coming from my background, where there was no way I could go out and just buy, a trailer full of head. Like, there was no way I was going to be able to afford any of that. I didn't have the land. For me, in order to actually get a grasp on things and to learn, I needed to start with a few head. I needed to know, what is the process? What are the things I have to do in order to get to that end point? And when you try to just like throw everything together, and you're trying to maybe find land to lease, or maybe you just bought acreage and you're trying to put animals on it, and then you have to deal with fences, and then you have to deal with vaccines, and just all the different animal care and management things, it's overwhelming. I mean, I joke with people about how having, at this point I have 7 head right now, just having that few cattle, I'm already overwhelmed because I'm working full time. I have a lot of other things that I'm doing in my life. Trying to balance all of that is really overwhelming. So in order for me to have a viable business in the future, I need to understand the process. So I'm thankful because like this year we have 2 bull calves that we will be steering, and we will be feeding out, and we will be butchering and selling.
That's another really important point, is I think we all have these huge dreams, and it's easy to just run and gun for them. But like you said, you have a full-time job too. You are part of other things. And so you have to be careful with that. And you have to be careful with your resources. I mean, there's a lot of capital that goes into ranching, and to be able to have the financial ability to pay for that if you are going to grow fast. I mean, you can grow fast, but you have to make sure you have those financial resources, or a good relationship with your banker, however you're funding it, however you're able to do it, whatever your business model set up is, you have to make sure you're able to do that. But also from you know, a mental health standpoint too. You're taking on a huge burden. So I really appreciate you bringing up that point with that.
Well, and I want to add to that, like when you talked about mental health, you know, it's not just me. I am the face of it. I am the like mastermind behind my, you know, herd. But my fiance, unfortunately, is just part of that, whether he wants to be or not. And there have been, you know, conversations between us too, where he's like, I want to be able to go travel on the weekends. I want to do other things, but we're doing fence work. And I get that, because like this is a dedication that is completely different than what he's ever been interested in, you know, not coming from a livestock background. But I have to be able to balance that. I have to say to him, you know what, the work that we need to do, that's not life-threatening. It's not, you know, anything that we just can't put off. So it's important for me to also say, I love this is my passion, but I need to be able to take a break too in order to, you know, sustain my personal relationships and make sure that everything is working cohesively.
Well, that's awesome, and I think that's, you know, having those boundaries is important, and I think that's something that we as a ranching industry, like I know some people who are very good at setting those boundaries and going out and, you know, maybe taking a vacation once a year, and I know people who never go, but I think it's important that we set those boundaries and take the breaks that we need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving on to number 4, you talked about not understanding regional resources. So can you explain a little bit about understanding regional land, water, feedstuffs, cattle breeds? What do you mean by that?
Well, yeah, pretty much all of those things, right? Like when I first decided that I wanted to, you know, get into cattle eventually, I was in Alabama, and they have a lot of, you know, eared cattle there. They have, you know, the Brahmas and stuff, and that works really well in that region, and that's really common. But then I moved back to California, and it's different. You know, in California, we have a lot of issues with water. We have a lot of issues with land, and I'm limited on that. So I knew that I needed to kind of understand, like, where's the best spot to get a lease? Do I want irrigated pasture? Do I want, you know, pasture up in the foothills? Or what's going to work best for me? And with the same with the breeds, like I looked at what's going to work best in the dry California heat. You know, you could go, I think you have to go into it and choose whatever you are passionate about, but you also have to look at in your area, you know, what's going to work out, what's going to be a barrier. You have to know, like, this is something I'm going to face, and I need to figure out how to work around that. So that was kind of my direction with it, was you need to understand, like, what is available to you, and that includes, like, you know, extension. I've been very outspoken about extension. Like in Alabama, it was really great, I thought. In California, in my area, I struggled with it. I haven't had the same, you know, I think, availability. And so to me, you also have to, like, know who are the experts that I can go to in my state, who are the land grant universities that I can, like, reach out to. And so that's also important too, because that's going to be crucial to your success.
You know, that's really important, and I'm glad you brought up, like, where you can go to find resources, because I think that's hard, because it's like, who can we trust? And everyone does have different experiences with different sides. You know, maybe some people have a good experience with their university, maybe some don't. And so that's really important. But
You need a cough drop.
it hasn't been this bad lately,
Really?
so I don't get it. But
It's the Houston air.
must be traveling. But so, was there anywhere else that you really went to look for resources? I mean, you talked about extension, you talked about, you know, being able to branch out, but was there anything specific that's helped you outside of that?
God, I mean, I've really, like, leaned on the people in my local community, like my cattle women's group, and I know that's another thing that people in different areas don't have great access to, but I'm very blessed to have a good cattle women's group. And you know, like I said, my stepdad, my uncle, they all have different backgrounds, different knowledge in it, and I've been able to reach out to them. And that's what I think people should do first and foremost, is go to those like immediate connections if you have them. If you don't have them, make them. And that's why you join your cattle women's. That's why you attend meetings. That's why you put yourself out there. That's why you reach out to social media. Join Facebook groups. I don't suggest asking for advice on Facebook groups. That goes back to my first deadly sin. But that is a great resource to like find different articles and learn what other people are experiencing, so you can either learn from their mistake or you can say, I want to look into this a little bit more. I will say I have used Google so much. It's not great because you have to sift through all of the resources, but I go through and I'm like, I have a question on this, I want to know about this, and I look it up and I find, extension articles from all over the country. And that's kind of what I base it off of. And then if I still have questions, I go to my vet, I go to my stepdad, I go to the people who have maybe a different perspective on it or can confirm, yeah, this is right, this is good information, or, well, you could also do it this way. So I think the most beneficial thing you can do is create connections. It doesn't have to be like this, long list of people that you can call. Just a couple people that you know that they know the industry and they have some type of credential in that, and make sure that you keep them because they are very valuable to your success.
I think those are all great points. And kind of moving into number 5, you brought up in this last one, which makes it move into number 5, where you talked about not joining a cattlemen or women or young farmers community.
Yes. So, and maybe I'm biased because I've had such a good positive experience with it, and I know a lot of people haven't. I will say, when I lived in Alabama, I tried to join my county cattle women's, and it was not good. There was no beneficial aspect to it. But I did join my young farmers, and I did join my cattlemen's, and that's what boosted me. Those people I'm still friends with. I still talk to all the time, and that's a great network to have. When I came to California, I joined my cattlemen's group. I didn't know anyone because, at that point I hadn't been in the industry here in California at all. They welcomed me with open arms. I am still connected to those women. I have since moved and joined the Fresno Kings County's cattle women, and that, I have lifelong friends from that. So I think that's just, I've already said it, that's going to be your network. Those are going to be the people that in your area, they know someone and they can help you. My cattle women have offered to let me use their chute to help me with questions that I've had on my calves. It is so beneficial. So make sure you join that because, one, you're going to be part of the industry conversation, but 2, you're going to be a part of your community. And those are, I think, important to be a business person. Because you're a leader as a business person, you want to be a leader in your community too.
Well, and I wholeheartly agree with that. It's something where, one, you do, and also you have those people for the resources. But being a part of the community, you can't do everything alone. And even from an advocacy standpoint, even if you are in that sense, it'd feel like preaching to the choir because they are your people. But that's also important, and that's where you can collaborate and make a difference elsewhere in the community.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, yes.
So, number 6, you said expecting to do it all on your own without a mentor, friend, experts, connections, or a vet is a deadly sin.
So, I know we've already touched on this a little bit, but yeah, if I did not have the people I have, I would not be here. Like I said, I am the face of this. I am the person that's making the decisions, but ultimately I am the one who's behind the scenes going to those people, those connections I've made, and saying, what do I need for this? How do I prepare for this? For example, we will be castrating our bull calves at the end of February, and we'll be branding. I've never done those things, never ever. I've watched them, never done them, but I want to be able to make sure that I have hands-on experience, and I want to have that with my own animals. So I'm reaching out right now. I have an extension agent, Lauren, in South Carolina, I think. North Carolina? Ooh. But if she watches this, sorry, Lauren. But I have reached out to her, and she's giving me resources on, how to handle that process. And, I'll be asking my vet to make sure, like, what do I need? What should I have on hand? Making sure that, he's on call if I need him. So in every single step of the way, I've had to have someone. Even when it comes to just lifting bales, like, my fiance has to be there because I'm not strong enough and I don't want to hurt myself, right? So he comes out and he helps me with, like, kind of the brunt work and things like that, and fixing fence and moving cows if I need to. He helps so much. Another example, like, his dad grew our hay for us for the first couple of years. He has just a small field, but we're able to use that hay, and now we're taking that over from him. And those connections, people that own the land, the people, my breeder, he's friends with us. My cattle nutritionist, I call him mine, but he works for the dairies locally. But he's been able to, like, help with my nutrition. Like, those are all connections I've made, and I wouldn't know the things I know without them.
Well, I think that's awesome, and amazing that you're giving credit to those people too. But I think about it, and even my experience, growing up, I'm fifth generation, right? So I've been in it a long time, but we still ask for a lot of help. Everyone needs help. Like, that's a part of improving, that's a part of building, is that understanding that it's okay that we don't know all the answers, because we can connect with someone else who can help us. And, there's a lot of power and beauty that comes with that too, in those collaborations.
Yes, like, asking for help. And you said those two things, asking for help and not knowing everything. Those are not bad things. You're human, and if you know everything, then you're not human, because not everyone knows everything. Everyone messes up all the time. So yeah, those are, like, very important.
Awesome. Okay, so number 7, moving on to the last one we're gonna talk about today, even though I feel like we've hit a lot of little ones in between. But number 7, not creating a legal entity and handling your small business as a business.
So for me, right away, before I even, like, really knew the direction I was taking with my herd, I legalized it in California. And so I have an LLC, because I knew that the expenses that I have, all of this, the input that goes into it is going to be helpful when it comes to taxes, when it comes to just, all of the benefits of having a registered business in California. Wanting to get, like, an FSA loan, wanting to get loans from banks, like, being able to have that business plan, like, that's going to be important. So I know a lot of people, I hate the word hobby. I hate the word hobby farm, because technically I could probably be categorized as a hobby farm, and I'm like, no, this is a part-time business. Like, this is a lot of work, and I'm putting in a lot of work making sure that I follow the steps that are required to have a legal business in California. And doing all those small steps right now, even though I'm not selling anything yet. I have a product, but I'm not doing anything with that product yet. I'm setting myself up so later on I'm not freaking out trying to figure it out, or realizing that, wow, I lost out on a lot of things because I didn't have, this business set up. So it's complicated. I'm still learning it. I am not an expert, but that's one of my goals this year, is to really focus on the business side of it. I think that a lot of people need to focus on that, because take it seriously. If you don't take yourself seriously, no one else is going to. So take whatever dreams that you have. And the LLC for me was, like, super cheap. There's nothing really to it, right? But now that's going to help me continue to grow and continue to focus on other parts of my business. So, get your brand registered, get your, business registered. Do those little things, because not only is that going to motivate you and make you feel more proud about yourself, it's also going to set you up for success later on.
Well, I think, everything you've said is important, but, going back to what we talked about with the legal stuff earlier, it is important to have that LLC set up. And, I want to make a point where, like, I guess, you made the hobby farm comment. And I think the difference, some of the difference there is, are you having your operation to be a business, like, is your goal to make it more profitable, or are you just doing it more as a hobby? But I do believe that we as producers need to give credit to some of those smaller operations because they can be profitable if they're run right. And it's something where we just need to build that business mindset about ranching no matter what our position we have in it, and learn to treat it like a business. And there's some, and I'm not saying we don't, like, there are some people who are phenomenal at it, but I think there's a lot that needs to be improved. And that would in turn improve the industry in a lot of other areas.
Yes, yeah, like big producers, like, they are so important. They are necessary in the industry. But I, coming from like the small producer and beginner producer, I'm like, okay, I'm probably never going to get there, but I want to get to the, point where I am, respected and considered, a viable beef business. And when I come to like CattleCon and stuff, I can go to these booths and say, hey, I want your product, and this is, it's going to benefit me, and I want them to say, this is why it would benefit you. I mean, the average herd size is less than 50 in the United States. So I think it's important that we do try to focus on them too a little bit more. And so I'm hoping with my platform that I can help raise more awareness. But I'm really thankful for the people who do have large operations that have like helped me, because those are the people that are like giving me that guidance. So I'm just excited to be able to work with more like large producers and raise the awareness for all types of operations and businesses, because we're all needed in one aspect or another.
Oh, awesome. So is there anything else on your heart to say to some of those first generation ranchers before we wrap up today?
I just like hope that they just go for it. I think we talked about that in the panel the other day. It's just, you just got to go for it. And I think that if you sit there and you try to like map everything out to a T before you get started, you're never going to start. You're always going to find something that's going to keep you from going to the next step, right? If you just go and you're just like, I'm going to start with 1 cow. I'm going to start with 1 acre. I'm going to, start with registering my brand. If you just go, if you just do it, you're going to keep doing it. And I just hope that people like, hopefully just find that encouragement and inspiration and find a community. And if they can't find the community, they can come to me, because I will be their cheerleader. Because I think that it is very discouraging and it's hard. In my position, I do feel a lot of discouragement, but I'm excited too. And I'm stubborn, and I just want them to be that way too.
Well, awesome. Thank you very much for hopping on the show today and sharing all your wisdom and experience to our listeners.
Thank you, Shay. I've had a fun time.
And that's a wrap on that one. Thank you for tuning in again. I hope to see you on the next one. And thank you, Markie, for being honest and sharing your advice. For all you first-time or first-generation ranchers, I really hope that you found comfort in knowing that it's not easy and others are right there doing it with you, and you're needed and you're important, and we are excited to have you in the industry. And that's coming from myself, who is a 5th generation. And when Markie says, know that you can come to her, you can come to me, there are people who want to support you, know that, ask questions. And for those of you who have been ranching for generations, support those first generation ranchers. Be there for them too, because it's going to take everyone. So with that, have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one.